Hello, it's Reija, and today I want to talk to you about a topic that's been trending on Booktube for about a year now, and that's been making me really excited and introduced me to a lot of new creators. And that is gamification, and specifically how to gamify your reading. So let's get started. So first of all, what is gamification and how does it relate to Booktube? Gamification is the practice of incorporating game design elements into non-gaming contexts. For example, adding leaderboards, competitive elements, and a failure stage, for example, on applications such as fitness apps and life management apps and chore apps and stuff, in order to motivate and engage the user to complete tasks in more efficient ways and to make the tasks more fun, especially with mundane tasks such as household chores, for example. And it relates to Booktube in an interesting sense because a lot of people have started coming up with TBR games. So there's Becca and the Books, who has done the famous Bookopoly. There's Codie's Book Corner. She's the creator of the Wheel of TBR, and even Books and Lala, who doesn't have a specific TBR game, but she does like these experimental videos where she takes an idea and sort of explores it in a way that makes it more challenging to her, and she kind of makes it an experiment. And those are all, in a sense, adding gaming elements and game design elements into your reading life. And I find this topic endlessly interesting because of my own personal interest in gaming and also my interest in IT and tech in general. Aside from Booktube, there are many areas where gamification has become a thing in recent years, most notably education, corporate field, and marketing. In the corporate world, gamification is used extensively for training employees and for team building exercises. In education world, it is used to make learning more interesting and engaging for students. Examples of gamification in a learning environment would be, for example, Duolingo, which basically makes learning languages a game, and you can advance and gain more points and have outfits for your avatar and stuff. And it makes the learning experience more engaging. In Booktube, these kinds of gaming elements have become a thing in readathons in the past year. For example, currently you have the Winter Magical Readathon, which has turned the readathon into a choose-your-own adventure where you gain reading prompts as you advance in the story. You have things like the Reading Rush, which introduced a website where you could gain achievements by completing challenges. And also you have readathons like the One Readathon to Rule Them All, which in its last round introduced a competition between teams where team members could obtain points by completing books and could compete against each other and sabotage other teams. These are all examples of game design elements being introduced into a non-game context, and it is super fascinating and interesting. The benefits of gamification include things like boosting engagement, offering incentives to complete tasks, and also making mundane tasks more exciting. And it is super interesting to start looking at things from a gamifying lens, because I figure everyone watching this video right now could probably name at least 3 things in their lives where they have noticed things like gamification happening. I would like you to actually answer in the comments what sort of gamified things you've noticed in your life. Next, I want to talk a little bit about ADHD and gamification, because I myself am on the ADHD spectrum, And sometimes, and most of the time, people with ADHD suffer from a lack of intrinsic motivation. You know, the drive that motivates you to complete tasks and do things. It is very common for people to sometimes have a bit of a low motivation, but for people with ADHD, it is more prevalent, and the need for external reinforcement is pretty much. And it can cause a lot of stress to try to look for that external reinforcement to make you motivated to complete tasks all the time, meaning that a lot of the time people with ADHD have a hard time starting and completing tasks, even when they know that they are important and need to be completed. There's just not that intrinsic drive to do it a lot of the time. And also when there is stress related to it, it then becomes even harder to start those things. So gamification can actually help people with ADHD in order to make the chores and tasks that you would find tedious more exciting, more engaging, and make it easier to build solid habits when you introduce gaming elements such as achievements, trophies, and nice visual cues to sort of distract the mind from the tediousness of the task. So what then are the disadvantages of gamification? Well, when you focus on the gaming aspect, you might actually start giving yourself false incentives to complete the tasks. Take reading, for example. You have this gaming TBR and you play the game, you get the books, and you start focusing more on the winning of your TBR game instead of focusing on the enjoyment of your reading. Or in the case of team building exercises or employee training, you might actually focus more on winning the game and gathering points than actually learning the new skill or learning to communicate with your team members, for example. There's also the thing that sometimes gaming elements can become too repetitive, where it actually starts working against you. The thing that originally made you feel engaged and excited about the game may start to feel repetitive and start to push you away from it. So that way you always need to be on the lookout for when you need to change things up in order to keep the element of excitement intact. There's also the fact that people have different needs and different styles when it comes to studying. Some people have dyslexia, some people have like attention deficit disorders like ADHD, and also just learn differently. So therefore, gamification isn't universal as a tool. You can have, to a certain degree, a level of homogeneous design elements, but you really need to key into individual needs if you want to successfully build a good gamified application in your life. So now we get to talking about gamification and gamifying your reading specifically, and what to consider when deciding whether you want to make a TBR game and to decide what kind of TBR game you want to make in the first place. So you need to consider what kind of a reader are you. Are you a mood reader, or are you someone who makes very strict reading plans? And also what kind of priorities you have as a reader. Do you have certain goals, certain page counts, certain marginalized identities, for example, that you want to read? What are the priorities you have when it comes to your reading? You need to know those before you start making your game. And also you need to figure out what kind of games you like in the first place. Do you enjoy story-driven games or task-oriented games? Do you enjoy very cool visuals, or are you more into the gaming mechanics and the sort of infrastructure behind the game? Are you more into casual or like very hardcore like metagaming elements? Are you into easier casual sort of dip in for a little while games? Or are you going really hardcore in a game and like want a very rough experience with a constant fear of failure, for example? Is that something that drives you? What drives you as a person that plays games? And also, it is completely valid if you don't like any games, and that is something that you also need to decide. Maybe a TBR game just isn't for you. So I made this handy dandy little grid here to sort of help you decide what kind of a reader are you. The vertical one is your reading. Are you more into like abstract or concrete like reading plans? Like, do you just want to pick anything like you want and there doesn't have to be any rhyme or reason, or do you really need structure? The next one is actually like putting together a TBR. So do you just want to put it together randomly, or do you want some sort of plan for it? This is the horizontal line is for the actual like game, random or planned with as much choice as you want. So those are sort of the things that you want to take into consideration, and here is how I land on that. I am sort of like in the sense that I'm on the middle when it comes to like my reading planned versus or abstract versus concrete, but I want a lot of randomness in my actual like choices when it comes to creating my game. And I have decided that I want to create a game, and that game is the TBR Jenga. And I have created a set of rules, and since this is a 2-player game, I have decided that Volt is going to help me each month to pick my TBR. And in order to incorporate some life stuff into it, I need to earn tokens by completing household chores before Volt will play a round of TBR Jenga with me. So I will make a whole video about this closer to January when we are playing the first round of TBR Jenga. I will tell you all the rules and stuff, but I just wanted to make this video about the general idea of gamification before we get to that. So you can have some ideas if you want to create your own TBR game. And I hope you are very excited about TBR Jenga coming to my channel in January 2020. And there you have it. If you enjoyed this video about gamification and reading, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. And I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye bye!